With over 10 years of experience in the self-directed IRA world and helping tens of thousands of people use their retirement money to make alternative assets like real estate, I've developed a number of tips that I think will be very valuable to you as a viewer, listener, someone who is interested in using retirement money to buy real estate. There's a couple things that I believe are important to know and keep in mind if you ultimately decide to go through with a self-directed IRA to buy real estate. Number one is research, research, research. Know what you're buying. Just because you can do it doesn't mean you should do it. So if you live in St. Louis and the properties in Houston, do your research. Check it out online. If you got to go there, go there. If you know someone in Houston area that can visit it for you, make sure you know what you're buying. Obviously, if it's in your community, you have a pretty good idea of value and type of property it is, and its status, how it looks. Because a picture shows it one way doesn't mean it actually looks that way. We know people can do some creative things with video. So be careful, do your research, know the price, know the market. Make sure you got enough cash, number two, in your IRA. Generally, you want to have some surplus, so if the property costs 80 grand, you probably want to have a little bit more in your IRA to buy it if you're going to pay cash, because things are going to happen. You're going to have to pay tax, there's improvements, there's closing costs. Let's say you have a tenant, but the tenant falls through. Now you got to carry the home or the apartment. You want to make sure you got a sufficient cash. So you'd want at least 5–10% extra of the value in surplus in the IRA. If you're going to do a self-directed IRA, make sure you know the differences between a checkbook control and a custodian controlled. The custodian controlled, obviously, well, the custodian will make that investment for you. The advantages is you don't need an LLC. It's cheaper annually, probably not, but there's no upfront fee on the LLC, which is good. The downside is you have to go through the custodian for all improvements. Every time you need a check to be paid to a contractor or a plumber or electrician, you got to go through the custodian. You pay your property taxes through the custodian, rent through the custodian. So a little bit more transaction fees and delays. Whereas checkbook control, there is some upfront fee because of the LLC, but the annual fees are lower. But the beauty of checkbook control is the LLC is controlled by you as the manager through a local bank account, and the IRA owns it, giving you this tax deferral. Plus you have the control at the LLC level, so you can write checks as you wish. Titles in the name of the LLC. You have limited liability protection. So some advantages there too. Obviously, you make that decision, whether you want checkbook control or custodial control, your call. But remember the differences, and you have options. Prohibited transaction rule is next. You got to be aware of what you can and cannot do. When it comes to real estate, obviously that's not life insurance and not collectibles, so you don't have to worry about 408 in the code. You got to worry about 4975. 4975 is clear, is you can't do several things with a self-directed IRA when it comes to real estate. You cannot self-deal. So you can't buy the house and live in it. You can't have your parents, your children, your spouse, daughter-in-law, son-in-law, which are disqualified people. They cannot be involved in the transaction or have any benefit from it. So you can't rent it out to your kids, your parents. You can't hire your kid as a painter. You can't hire your wife as the realtor. You can't hire your parents as the manager of the property. You got to keep everything arm's length. It should be an investment that only benefits the IRA and not your lineal descendants. So that's important. Unrelated business taxable income is another item to be aware of. Unrelated business taxable income, UBTI, applies if you're going to use leverage in a real estate, or if your real estate activity rises to a trade or business level. So in the real estate world, real estate's pretty passive. So most people aren't buying 10, 15 homes a year or flipping them, or most people aren't going to buy a piece of land and develop 5 homes on it. Just don't. It's really just not something people do often in their IRA. It's a money thing. It's an activity thing. But if you are going to do a business in your IRA, first of all, you can't do the business because we know the prohibited transaction rules do not allow you to provide services to your IRA. First of all, you can't earn compensation. You can't provide services. You can't personally guarantee the loan. So that's number one. But let's say you're going to have a third party develop it for you or build a house or help you do the flipping. you need to think about whether your activity rises to a trade or business, because if it does, you're going to trigger unrelated business taxable income, which will be a 37% tax on the profits or income. If you are going to use non-recourse loan leverage because you're short on cash and the property is 150,000, you only have 100, you can get a non-recourse loan. You cannot get a recourse loan, which is a loan you personally guarantee, because that triggers a prohibitive transaction, and that's a no-no. But let's say you get a non-recourse loan, which is a loan you don't personally guarantee. It's allowed, but it triggers unrelated business taxable income, which is a 37% tax on a proportion of the income related to the debt. So if you borrow $50,000 and put $50,000 of cash in there, it's a debt-to-equity ratio of 50-50, which means if your property generates $10,000 in profits, $5,000 of it, equal to that debt-to-equity ratio, could be subject to the UBTI tax, which is 37%. Changes the economics of the deal. May make you rethink it. But you got to be aware of it. You got to be aware of its application if you're an active trader business. Is 2 homes okay? Is 6 homes okay? Is 8 homes? Facts and circumstances. We'll get into that in more detail in some other videos, which you can check out the IRA Center online on the site. Different videos about unrelated business taxable income, and kind of dive into some of those details about facts and circumstances and what really rises to a trader business in the real estate world. So unrelated business taxable income is another. Expenses. Make sure you pay for all expenses with IRA money. No personal money. Don't commingle personal money. All rent checks go back to the IRA, LLC. They don't go back to you. If you're short on cash, you got to borrow it from a third party, non-disqualified. You can't just write a check from your personal account or have a lineal descendant give them to you to blow up your IRA. So you got to be careful about that, especially if you're writing checks. Be super careful. I had a client once who he wrote a $500 check, like a $500,000 IRA. He mistakenly wrote a $500 check. That's it, to an entity he owned from his IRA LLC. Total mistake. Obviously, he didn't need the money. He's a wealthy man. And he screwed up. The IRS audited him for some reason, and he said, I made a mistake. I'm sorry, Mr. IRS agent. There's nothing I can say. Screwed up. The IRS agent blew his whole IRA up for $500. We agreed we were going to say charge us 1,000% penalty. We don't care. It's unfair. It's only $500. There's no intent. $500 didn't mean anything to the guy. Too bad. It's almost strict liability. You wrote that check to yourself. Even if it's a mistake, you're done. So be careful. Before you write that check, really remember where it's going. Think about where it's going and be cautious. Self-directed IRA investing is fun. It's easy. It's not complex. It's not dangerous. But you still got to follow some rules. Like everything else in life, if you follow the rules, everything falls into place. Real estate's no difference with a self-directed IRA. The tips I just presented should give you an idea of kind of the things you need to keep in mind. Obviously, be comfortable with what you're doing and know who you are. Just because your friends are doing self-directed IRA real estate, or you've heard you can do so, it's legal. If it's not for you, don't jump into it. This is your hard-earned retirement money, so be careful, because obviously things could happen. But the beauty of using retirement money to buy real estate is you get to invest in what you know and what you understand. It's a hard asset, good protection on diversification, inflation, and you generate tax-deferred income or tax-free income in the case of a Roth, and it goes all back into your IRA LLC without tax, allowing you to grow your retirement account much quicker than it would in a taxable account. So all in all, real estate's a really exciting investment opportunity. A lot of my clients do so, and the self-directed IRA proves to be a really good vehicle.